Hi, I'm Stuart Ryan. In this video, I'm going to show you various ways to play the D chord. D is a great key for guitar and it's featured in classic tracks like Bryan Adams' Summer of '69, Lynyrd Skynyrd's Sweet Home Alabama, and also things like Ed Sheeran's Thinking Out Loud and U2's With and Without You. So let's start off by taking a look at the chord in the open position. Open D gives you this great, bright, powerful sound, and this shape has been used in so many tracks. Here's the basic shape many of us start off with, the open D major chord shape. And for that one, I'm playing the 4th string open, and then I've got the 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, the 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and the 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the E string. The challenge with this chord is to avoid playing the 6th and 5th strings. You can actually play the 5th string in this chord because the D major contains an A, that's the 5th of the chord, so the open A string is fine. And it gives you a kind of a bigger sounding D chord. But to begin with, try and play just the top 4 strings in the chord. If you're new to that chord, one way to visualize it is as a triangle between the 1st and 2nd fingers, and then the 3rd finger being the top of the triangle. You can, of course, play D major as a bar chord. So we're going to take the open E major chord shape and move everything up to frets 12 and 11. And then we'll add a bar at the 10th fret. So we've got the 3rd finger on the 12th fret of the A string, the 4th finger on the 12th fret of the D string, and the 2nd finger on the 11th fret of the G string, and then that 1st finger bar across the 10th fret. One of the main challenges with bar chords is to get the bar sounding clean, the 1st finger, particularly on the top 2 strings. So I find that rolling the finger onto the bony side just helps to get a little bit more pressure and purchase onto the strings. And you don't need too much pressure here either, just a slight grip between the thumb on the back of the neck and the finger playing the bar, the 1st finger. We can also take the A major chord shape from the open position up to fret 7, and then add a bar across the 5th fret from the A string to the high E string. And some players will bar all the way across to the 6th string as well. You can play the chord from there. It just gives you a bigger, thicker sound to the chord. But what we're dealing with this bar chord shape, the main challenge is to get the index finger bar sounding the high E string as well, and keeping enough pressure on fingers 2, 3 and 4 on the D, G and B strings. Although many players will ignore the high E string and play the A, D, G and B strings in the bar. And you can also finger that chord with the 3rd finger fretting down the 7th fret and the index finger bar still across the 5th fret. And whilst you can play the high E string in that shape, it's actually quite complex, quite tricky to do that because the 3rd finger is going to flatten down, and a lot of the time it's going to actually rest against the high E string. So that string might be naturally muted. Don't worry too much if that's the case, it's very common. Or you might get that sound not quite coming through. Some players will also use the 4th finger for that bar on the 7th fret, the partial bar. But if you're doing that, you want to make sure that you're not playing the high E string because you're going to get the sound of a D major 6 chord. There's the note at fret 7. It's fine for some contexts, it's a very sort of 50s sounding chord, but if you're going for a D major, just try and play those 4 strings. And then add in the high E string later. You can also get some great colour by just slightly changing some of these chords we've looked at. And the first one is the D sus2. And all I've done there is taken my open D major chord and taken the 2nd finger off the 2nd fret of the E string to play the open E string, which gives me the suspended 2nd. And that's a great chord for moving from a D to a D sus2. or for playing on its own when you want a sound that isn't so obviously major. And another variation is the D major 7, which is common in jazz and various blues and soul songs. Looks like this. So that's just the first finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, the 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the B string, and the 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the E string. And some players will use a 1st finger bar across the 2nd fret as well. It's very common to go from a D major to a D major 7. Sometimes you'll find a D major with the 3rd in the bass on the 2nd fret of the low E string, which looks like this. It's a really big sounding chord, but the challenge there is to get that thumb hooked over to play the 2nd fret of the low E string. And that's very Hendrix, that thumb over the top. Though some players will also play it like this. So that's the 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the low E string. Then the 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. 4th finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. And the 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the E string. An A string against it. Or you'll find the tip of the 1st finger just mutes that A string. And the final shape we'll look at is a modification of the bar chord shape, the A shape from here. We're going to lose the index finger bar at fret 5. We'll put it on fret 7 of the D, G and B strings, and then add the 4th finger on the 10th fret of the E string to play a high D. And that's a really bright sounding chord that cuts through and is great for soul, funk and various pop tracks as well. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that quick look through D chords and the variations you can play. Practice those as much as possible and then get them into your own playing and any covers you're doing as well. Don't forget to subscribe to Guitar World, and I'll see you for the next video soon. Take care.